Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Elitist Geek VR news for August 27th on a rather chillaxing Saturday. And you guys know probably what I mean. Whenever you have downtime, the downtime just flies by, right? And before you know it, you're back at work or possibly doing something you don't enjoy as much. It's why for me, 1 week vacations, unless it's a staycation, but going somewhere for 1 week just isn't enough. Me personally, I don't start relaxing until the end of the first week. And then you're back at work. What's the point? 2 weeks. That second week is really when I start winding down, right? From workplace stress and all of that. Anyways, there are times, guys, where VR still amazes the absolute crap out of me, right? And maybe it's because I've got these old gaming kind of approach and thoughts and expectations of what a game is and what it delivers, that it's able to continually amaze and surprise me, right? But for whatever reason, when I look at a VR game or experience, I tend to be underwhelmed based on the 2D screenshot, right? Knowing that as soon as I try it, it's probably going to blow away what I see on the screen. But even I fall into that trap of, judging a book by its cover, literally, right? And it is with great shame that I admit that a game that many of you, and you know exactly who you are, have harped on me about, has suffered from that. And that is a game called Subnautica. You see, I finally got around to it on that massive list of titles that you guys want me to look at, that I myself want to look at. I don't know what it was last night, just a regular gaming Friday, but I decided to take a look, and holy crap, I was blown away. Very few development companies can do water properly, right? The way of doing water, that technique, that shading technique from Morrowind's days, has kind of become the standard template, right? So we're nearing in on 2 decades of doing water that way. And it looks okay, but it's not as realistic as it could be, right? Every once in a while, a game does water brilliantly, and you hope it'll catch on, and it usually doesn't, right? BioShock, for example, one. The best water effects, hands down, any game ever around, before, after, since. It does water amazing. Any interaction between you and water in that game is magical, right? Until Subnautica. So many games, like I say, they fall back on that standard way of doing water shading. Well, in Subnautica, they do it brilliantly, and the screenshots don't do it justice. So, yeah, I fall into that same trap time and time again, judging it by its cover, right? And we always try to say, look, the most skeptical person, put an HMD on their head, they're converted, right? And yet, I fall for the same stuff. I looked at Subnautica so many times, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait for the holiday Steam sale. Summer came and went. I'll wait for the winter Steam sale. For some reason, I got it last night, and I'm so glad I did, guys. The water on lowest setting looks good. The water on the highest setting looks amazing. It literally feels like you are in a Kevin Costner water world. The good parts about Kevin Costner's water world, not all the bad parts, right? It feels awesome. And my favorite thing about Subnautica, smooth frickin' movement. Now, I've said it before, I sympathize wholeheartedly with those of you who get the VR nausea. I get it. I understand it. Right? I don't want you guys to miss out or be punished, right? Which is why I say VR devs should at minimum include 2 forms of locomotion. Because what Subnautica did that I loved is smooth movement. Just good old-fashioned smooth movement, right? Unlike the water, didn't really need to be innovated much. Yes, VR movement's going to go into all exciting directions, but until then, alongside the locomotion, for those of us who are okay with it, please include smooth motion, because it felt natural in Subnautica. It didn't feel forced. It didn't ruin the immersion for me, having my body sit still while I was smooth moving around. It added to it. It was awesome. You can play the game as a virtual tourist. You don't even have to get into the crafting and all that. It's got many graphic mode or many gameplay modes. I will do a quick play video. I know there's a lot of videos out there. I know I'm late to the party, but I think we can do it some justice, in the quick play series, in showing things that a lot of the other videos don't show. The tech setting side, the graphical options, the optimization / performance side of it, not just here's the game, right? So I hopefully will have that later today. But for those of you who have been persistent on me about that, thank you. And yes, I bury my head in much shame. I should have tried it earlier. I really should have. But I'm glad I did now, right? I don't know how much longevity it has, staying power, no idea. Haven't looked into that yet. But what I've seen so far, the probably 2 to 3 hours I spent in it last night, absolutely amazing. All right, on to the news, guys. So this first little bit. Now, I've talked about my BS detector and some of the things that kind of just make it go off. And look, far from being perfect on it, I do have a pretty good ability to sense bullshit. And it's been painful for me to watch the Oculus folks try to act. And look, before I jump into this, I love my Rift, I love my Vive, I love them both. But the companies behind the technology can definitely, well, they both have pissed me off, but just give me facepalm after facepalm moment, right? So back to this. Oculus with their publicly coy, room VR's not that important, but yeah, we'll include it. And all their actions speak to the contrary, show to the contrary. They've been adding stuff to SDKs. They're ramping up the chaperone style capabilities. All their actions fly in the face of just not having to feel like they told us so. It was important, right? Just get over it. It would be my thinking, right? Just come clean, or you know what? Don't even talk about it anymore. Just do it. Just do it. Well, the latest one was regarding the Oculus Touch. Jason Rubin, who is head of content at Oculus, just blew me away. And it reeked of such absolute, and excuse me in advance for this, bollocks. Absolute bollocks and BS that words absolutely failed to describe the heaping heap of bovine fecal matter. That is what this guy said yesterday. Let's take a look. So I've got these exact quotes, guys. First one is, it was possible for us to launch the first touch device when we showed it, and everyone said this is awesome. We could have shipped it. All right. I call BS on that. I call BS on that because no, in that state, with all the things you've added to it now, it wasn't ready. Plain and simple, it wasn't ready. Had you guys taken it serious, yeah, I could see you could have launched. There might have been some issues because look, even the Vive's motion, there's lots of complaints. For me, it feels natural, the trigger feeling. For a lot of you, and you've commented on the channel comments, it does not, right? Some people find them too heavy, too unwieldy. What I'm trying to say is there is room for improvement. But at a bare minimum, Vive bundled it in with solid, strong options. Options that you at Oculus did not have and could not have launched with, right? So yeah, that line, no, sorry, no. The next quote, if we had launched Touch with the Rift, there would have been a bunch of demos and a few good titles like Job Simulator and Fantastic Contraption. But we wanted to give our devs enough time to really create a launch lineup. A good slate of titles that would last hours as opposed to just minutes of enjoyment. And we think that takes time. So more than tweaking hardware, we wanted to give the software some time. Do I even have to explain that one? I mean, you guys can probably reek the BS through the screen right now. I don't even need to get into the why that is such a laughable quote, because it's just not true from start to finish, right? His last quote, devs are really happy with what they've got, and we didn't wait to release it until we were happy with the ergonomics. Every button was in the right place. Everything was perfect. finally a little bit of truth in that last statement, which kind of contradicts the earlier ones, but you guys dropped the ball on the controllers. I know it, you know it, the viewers know it. Doesn't mean we don't like you. I think the touch is going to be brilliant, but just come clean about it. You didn't anticipate, the controller would be as important as it ultimately looks like it turned out to be, and you needed more time to perfect it, to bring it to market. Fair enough. Nobody cares. The world goes on, right? But this whole trying to come across like you knew it all along, it reeks of falseness, right? And most of us can sense that a mile away. So anyways, it's just disappointing to continually hear that party line coming out of the Oculus camp, right? But make no mistake, day one purchase for me, the Touch. I think it will be a better controller than the Vive's controller, absolutely. But it's had the benefit of additional R&D time. So why not just come out and say that? Such an obvious thing, in my opinion. Anyways, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that. On to slightly, and before I do, because that one was a bit of a doozy, just requires a little bit of a schlock. Mucho bitaro. All right, next story. Calgary. Calgary is one of the bigger cities in Canada. It is, along with Edmonton, one of the biggest cities in Alberta, I believe I think they're still ahead of Edmonton, technically. I don't know about the greater area, whatever. Anyways, there is a company out of Calgary that offered real live action room escape puzzle. We have a few of those too here in Richmond in the greater Vancouver area, but it's, you go with a group of friends like the, DS game, 999, I believe it was called. And in that game, you're solving various puzzles to get out of a room. Now, most of you know what that is. I'm only saying this for the few of you who may not, right? So this was a company that offered a live version of that. And, I've been to similar ones here in Vancouver, and they're fun as hell to do with a group of friends, right? It's a fun thing to do. Anyways, they've now expanded and have become Calgary's first, to my knowledge, and Western Canada, although I believe there were rumors of one in Vancouver. So if you know, let me know in the comments below. But one of the first VR arcades in Calgary, if not the first. Now, they've got 2 HTC Vive stations, and I took a look at their website just to kind of see how they're offering this. Apparently, they have 2 Vive stations. And right now, it's in a room with enough space for both of those Vive stations. Each station has 180 square feet, so roughly 12 by 13 feet for each of the stations, right? For us metric people, 16 square meters, right? So 4 by 4 meters, basically, roughly, a little bit over, for each of them, okay? And there's no mention of the cost, but the space is good. Like, that is a healthy space. I would put that kind of in the, medium to large, actually closer to large in terms of what Vive room scale can do comfortably. So if I find out more about the costs, or if anybody is in the Calgary area that happens to be watching this and you know what the pricing is, let me know. I'm curious, because I know what it is in other places. I think it was $15 for 30 minutes to an hour, something like that, right? Definitely affordable, but a business just based on that, it would be really tough. Like one company, we did the calculations on it, and they could barely make utilities. It's like they didn't do the calculations, right? Strictly offering just the VR with the stations they had. These guys, again, they do offer different experiences like the room escape puzzles. So hopefully that provides them with some longevity and lets them be successful, right? Because ultimately, anything to get VR out there is additional PR and will contribute to the success. Now, for anybody who has followed console gaming, right, and to some degree probably people on the PC side of things too, the whole Hideo Kojima and Konami thing has just been a gong show, right? In my opinion, the way they have disrespected him was just shameful, right? Not being able to attend, the lawyers prevented him from attending a 2015 Game Awards show. I believe it was, what's his name? He does the voice acting for Snake. Anyways, escaping me right now. Kiefer Sutherland, there we go. Who had to take the trophy on behalf of him, which was, again, just shameful, right? Now, granted, he's kind of like a Sid Meier and a Richard Garriott in that he doesn't really do the hands-on coding himself. Certainly not as much as he used to. It's more of a director-style capacity, right? And, yeah, to go into the pachinko, we don't even have to talk about that. All of us probably pretty much know how Konami shit the bed on that. There's no need in kind of harping over it here, but it is nice to see he's kind of landed on his feet. He's working on a game with Norman Reedus for the game industry. I'm pretty sure he's able to keep working on that. I'm just trying to remember what the game was called, but I can't see it here. But anyways, he's working on wrapping that game up, and the company that he's working with is basically a VR company, and they are called Prologue Immersive. They're creating virtual reality content, so it's nice to see him land on his feet. And even if it is, again, in just a design aspect or directorial producing role, I think that's going to be awesome, right? And as much as the whole Konami thing saddens me, it's at least nice to see him back, and back in our kind of hobby area of virtual reality. So hopefully that'll lead up to something, right? Usually these things take a couple of years to get to market from inception to finally launching, but that's not a bad thing in my books. There's enough other stuff to look forward to. If we have a Hideo Kojima style game in a year or two, that would be awesome and just would be a benefit in my opinion. I've also talked in the past about Battlezone and how important that game was for me and a lot of other people in terms of just being an arcade game, a 3D game, a very close to kind of virtual reality style experience. It was just phenomenal when it came out in 1980. Anyways, the version for the PlayStation that I've mentioned before, which is going to be for their launch, has some additional trailer footage, and it'll be in the links below. And let me tell you, it looks amazing. I love the nod to the old game as well. For example, when you blow up tanks and objects, rather than the conventional explosion, right? That looks like a fuel-based explosion, right? The objects explode literally, kind of Tron style, kind of a nod back to the primitive polys of the first Battlezone. They blow up into this mass of polygon shapes, right? That then quickly scatter. And I just think that's awesome. And it's such a small thing, but such an awesome nod to the first game, right? So anyways, it also showed tons of additional tanks, enemies, some really cool like proximity bombs, stealth type missiles. Have a look at that. Let me know what you think. I know it's probably going to appeal more to guys like me or gals like me who played the original, but I think it's got enough in there that's fresh and new and vibrant to attract newer gamers as well. And hopefully it's going to be a nice involved game, not something 10 minutes and you're done, right? So there you have it, guys. That is it for today's news. There is a bunch of stuff coming down in the game pipe side of things. I also hope by Monday or Tuesday to have the new Gear VR. I had that shipped from Amazon, so I'm going to run across the border to pick it up Monday or Tuesday, along with my Note 7. I'll do a video on that as well for anyone who's interested. And there you have it. So time for me to get working on that other video and back to some much needed gaming. All right, guys, cheers as always, and we will definitely catch you on the flip side.